Welcome to the video lecture on death and dying. The leading causes for death in those in late adulthood, ages 65 and older, are heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and diabetes. Some people live way into their 90s, others topping 100. Death is inevitable, but it is still something that many of us aren't ready to talk about yet. Someone who studies death and dying is called a thanatologist. Someone who studies this phase of our life often explores topics like dying in healthy ways or something called death selection, like for those with terminal illness who want to choose where they want to die. We have things called advance directives, which is a legal document that allows a person to state explicit instructions about end-of-life care ahead of time. There's something called a living will, which is another legal document that expresses an individual's wishes regarding medical care in case that person becomes incapacitated and unable to make medical decisions. Some people choose a DNR, or do not resuscitate, so that if they do stop breathing, they don't want to be brought back to life. There is a movement called the right to die. It really started years ago when a man named Dr. Kevorkian began helping people with terminal illnesses to end their lives. So many people sought him out because they wanted to die with dignity and they needed somebody's help. He eventually wound up in prison, being charged with murder. There's also physician-assisted suicide, and that can be a source of major conflict within the physician itself. Sometimes they will rely on family members to make that decision, whether or not to pull the plug, so to speak. When it comes to suicide, there are high statistics of people ages 45 to 64. Females are more likely to attempt suicide, usually with pills or less violent measures, whereas males are more likely to complete the suicide with more violent attempts using weapons. You know that if someone in your family has to have hospice brought in, it doesn't really look that good. Hospice is a program that tries to make a person's last moments more comfortable. They use more aggressive treatments, medications, antidepressants to make pain and suffering more tolerable. And it allows for people to die at home, which many people want to do. So how do we confront our own death? I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to do that. Some people will experience a death drop, which is a systematic psychological change that occurs before death, even several months before death. People may realize that death is near, and their bodies and their minds start to sense that as well. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a Swiss psychiatrist who moved to the United States, and in the 60s, she interviewed thousands of people who were near death and then began to develop the 5 stages of dying. In the denial stage, we often resist or refuse to believe it's happening. In the anger stage, we get mad because we wonder, why me? We may even get angry at our higher power. Then we begin to bargain, saying things like, oh God, I promise I will never smoke again if you just cure this lung cancer, or just let me get through my son's wedding. Depression is the 4th stage because we start to mourn our own impending death. And that's sad because we're leaving those people that we love. Finally, the acceptance stage is where we accept that there's nothing we can do about it, so I might as well stop struggling. As you can see, death is not easy, it's not pretty, and it's certainly not simple. It's scary, and most of us don't want to think about it. But it is inevitable, and we should do what we can to prepare. Like Winston Churchill said, I am prepared to meet my maker. Whether my maker is prepared for the great ordeal of meeting me is another matter.